generally research tend to look at, the conceptualization of mental health.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will now also call on Sister Purissima. She's a professor in existential psychology, existential philosophy. Recently, she opened what she called a clinic, a therapist, a philosopher clinic, where therapists, that is philosophy as therapeutic, that is what gained her the position of professorship at Madonna University, Okija. So, Sister Purissima, please, can you tell us from your perspective, how can you conceive mental health?
Yeah, thank you, Sister Kalis. I hope I'm being heard better now.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Well, mental health, as Fadi Jerry said, is a state of well-being that all of us find ourselves in, because it's at the center of human existence as we pursue our happiness and our authentic and meaningful existence. And so mental health is simply the degree of functioning of each individual. And this degree of functioning has negative and positive dimensions. But I think I will concentrate more on positive dimensions, and the adverse of it may also refer to maybe problem of mental health. It's always safer to go positively in life, However, mental health has more to do with the functioning of the individual in the society, and this functioning has various dimensions. It has social, cultural, if you like. It has psychological, it has emotional, it has also cognitive dimension. And in this sense now, sometimes we find ourselves, also losing our temper. That is an aspect of sometimes we behave as if we are getting out of hand in terms of reacting to situations. That is why emotional mental health emphasize the way we respond to issues. Psychological mental health also emphasize the way we also address certain issues, especially the way we perceive our environment. And then sociocultural mental health refers also to the way in which we, our degree of belongingness to the society we belong to, the degree of establishing and maintaining relationships with others, and even with ourselves, intrapersonal, and sustaining them, and also this degree of sense of belongingness we have, and the participation in our various environments. And mental health has also, apart from these components, has its various nature, the positive, as I said, and negative effects, which are very important in determining whether mental health, whether we have good mental health or negative one. And in this sense, again, poor mental health relates more to the adverse of it, while good mental health relates to high degree of positive functioning of each individual in the society. By functioning, we mean ability to perform well, exercise our abilities, and develop ourselves better. It is also important to, okay, sorry, because of time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really want to come back to Fadi. You are involved in research. You've done a lot of research. But it seems like most of the times the Africa and Nigeria in particular, talking about diseases or illnesses that are prevalent in this cultural space, mental health is not always counted as one of them. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, I think you are absolutely correct. Mental health is not really something that we recognize as a disease. Mostly if it is not explosive, As I said, the only time we think about mental health, conceptualize in our own different ways is, then we start, oh, everybody start panicking. But in actual fact, as Sister mentioned earlier on, there are a lot of people who have some form and level of mental health problem. But if it is not Onyana Aranaba, it is not recognized and nobody takes it serious. And so one of the problems, I would divide why it is so is because the system we have in Nigeria does not, or even in Igbo land, seem not to, recognize those levels of mental health unless it becomes explosive. And then individuals, as in terms of individuals, is that we sometimes we feel very shy. Let me put it that way because I hate to use this English language that kind of messes me up. I is because money I have anger problem or nwa agbọghọbịa pụta sị na nwoke bere ya n'ike raped her ọ na-eme ihere what ndị ọcha na-akpọ stigma so ihe nọ n'ime ihe ndị a na-eme this low level of mental health is something that prevents a lot of people in terms of individuals to recognize that this is a problem. And it's a problem that needs, very serious attention before it escalates to the point that, I got it very hard to put that person in check. Again, as I said, it depends on different cultures, and the different cultures have different ways, they tend to approach it. So, but in Nigeria, that's the simple thing. It's both systematic and it's also both individual. But to be honest and to be fair to research and studies, in Nigeria and particularly in Igbo land, is that we are coming up, gradually we are coming up, but we are far away from, what we want to be in terms of mental health and recognizing and having treatment for it.
Yes. So now I come to Dr. Michael. You're a medical professional and you've been working in Charité as a medical director, and of course you're also in research. Okay, you're not a medical director. Sorry. Okay, so but you're working in Charité, and I'm sure you are not foreign to the topic, the environment where you work and looking around yourself. So from that medical point of view, how would you, look at what Fadijere said in a that is more when it becomes full-blown madness before we start responding? Why do you think that always happens?
Okay. Thank you very much, sister. And it's very kind of you for promoting me. I'd like to say I work at the Charité, like you said, and I'm an internist by profession and I'm a geriatric. And geriatrics has to do with the elderly, which tend to have certain mental health issues. For instance, depression, dementia, as well as anxiety disorder. I like to associate myself with what my co-panelists have already discussed, of mental health being all about well-being and the maintenance of functional capacity or independence. I think that is what it's all about. Like Fadijere said, every one of us has mental health issues, but it becomes a problem when you can no longer function, can no longer go to work, you can no longer go about your hobbies or take care of your family. That is when it becomes a problem. So like he was saying, mental health in the Nigerian or African context is unfortunately mostly restricted to what you will call schizophrenia, when it has become full-blown. But there are aspects of mental health like depression, like I already mentioned, anxiety disorders. We also have alcohol or substance abuse, which might be secondary in terms of the cause. And also affects the awareness surrounding mental health in Africa and in Nigeria. I think it has to do a lot with our colonial mentality. Fela Kuti once sang a song, Colonial Mentality, about the white man having released you, but you haven't released yourself. So there's a movement going on around in global health circles about decolonizing our mental space. So we really need to sit down as Africans and redefine, reimagine what mental health actually means for us, and not just borrow from foreign land, because it will never work. We experience it in other spheres of lives, like in governance, education. It's simply not functioning. So there has to be a change, a paradigm shift in this sense. And one other issue is also that of stigmatization, because nobody wants to be associated with mental health issues. So these issues are not openly discussed. So there has to be a sea change for us to make progress.
Thank you so much. Now, I think we are narrowing down to some of these cultural behaviors or inherited behaviors from the so-called colonial, call it colonial inheritance or colonial impacts. So would it be that even before the colonizers came, that we also have a way of responding to, this situation? Because one can think of, presumably, we can look at those days when people have that, you think of that the person committed a crime or a taboo, and the spirits are after this person, or the person is a witch or something. Something happened to this person. So it has never always been that it's associated with some medical condition. And because of that, I come back to you again, Fadi Ijere, looking at the cultural practices. Dr. Mike said something about colonialism, and I could see you nodding, trying to, a kind of give affirmation to what he was saying. So how would you weigh the cultural practices, something that might have been and that is not yet, or something currently that has to do with our cultural practices in relation to mental illnesses and how we react to it?
If Dr. Mike Nnaji, if you will, pardon me, I will prefer to call you Mike if it's okay with you.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah. So
okay.
Mike was absolutely correct. Because for instance, mental health. It's a Western construct, and it's a Western construct built on the Western way of perceiving and understanding and conceptualizing mental health. So it is not an operational concept in our own area. And so, for instance, when I went to University of Ilorin, to deliver a paper when I was home, just a few months ago, there's a question to a lot of professional psychologists, medical doctors, and every other people that say, can anyone here give me one Yoruba concept that has to do with mental health? None. They were still going back to issues of mental health. It's a Western concept. So, Mike was absolutely correct. We need, first of all, professionals in this area need to focus more on decolonizing this issue, and then I think from there we'll reconceptualize it, find the treatment, find recovery, find prevention strategies that will help us to move forward. Sometimes okay, let's say talking about cultural healing or treatment of it. Mike, I guess you're a medical doctor. In those days, remember, let me go to the medical area. In those days, remember, onye agwọta agakụta ahịa no somewhere, right? Shishie ya, penye onye ahụ. Akwa Mike, aphe onye ahụ nga agwọtara ya. It's the person gets well. That's our own medical point of view. can we purify that? Can people like Mike work towards purifying that in terms of dosage, in terms of when, how many times that can be done? Yes, we have the capacity, we have the human capacity, but we shy away from it. And so sometimes when we talk about treatment and prevention of so-called mental health in our culture, we need to fall back to certain ways our people used to do it before colonization, and it worked. Let's review it. I'm not saying that no system is perfect anyway. There's no system is perfect. Mike will bear this, even in the medical area, it's not a perfect system.
Absolutely.
We continue to move on and progress. So if we could go back to pre-colonized era, we have as a culture, African culture. I told people, in Lome yesterday that we have huge, rich, African cultural treatment, prevention of mental health. But we need to go back to it and look at it, work on it, refine it to fit from the lens of the person seeking the service, not from the lens of the provider. And that's what we call explanatory model. How do we treat this person? How is this person conceptualizing this? Yeah, if our people say, okay, because okay, let's explore it and figure it out. We can do some interviews and figure out, ask people, ask the person, to give us some history behind, ihe ndị bekee na-akpọ superstition, which I don't understand what they mean by superstition. What does that mean? It's a Western concept. When they want to demean us, for instance, and I believe in it. And it helps. You go back to those treatment times. As I gave an example with, medical, areas. We also have our own, psychological perceptions. I guess that, I'm with a child. We can collaborate with people in the medical area like Mike, pharmacists in Nigeria or Togo or African area. And how do we modernize this in the sense that it becomes accessible to our people? I'm not ruling out the fact of evidence-based, but we can make ours more operational than the evidence-based approach.
Okay, I think we will still come to that. I think because that is the last part of our of this segment, trying to work out a strategy for proper response. But still, you talked about superstition, and that brings me to Purissa. You opened a clinic. You called it a therapeutic clinic, and your research area is trying to find meaning in life. Okay, so now, how would you evaluate the response of religion, the correlation between religious, how our people run to, prayer houses, maybe to priests, also to healing centers, to seek for help once somebody starts exhibiting some abnormal behaviors?
Yeah, thank you, Sister Kalis, once more. The fact is that we need to tap into the root cause of our attitude towards mental health, especially here in this part of the world, the sub-Saharan areas like in Nigeria. Now, when you talk of superstitious belief in relation to mental health, it has to do with the understanding that mental health is caused by various spirits or witchcraft, sorcery, and so on. And oftentimes, as a result of, as a punishment to what has happened in the person's life. But let us also not forget that there are family dynamics to that. Some families are believed to have this lineage of mental health. And that is why even during marriage, there is this aspect of trying to ask of the background of the family, whether they have mental health conditions, because it is also believed that sometimes it doesn't also manifest until during some except in situations of pressures, like during pregnancy, in terms of the woman and so on. And so when this superstitious belief is attached to mental health, it simply means that people believe that, or religious conditions attached, people believe that it is caused by this evil spirit and one is possessed by that. And as a matter of fact, one has to also go to some religious bodies to get rid of it. And also sometimes it has to do with dealing with some practices like sacrifices in various forms, in various places, in order to get rid of it. We also will give this understanding too, that because of the understanding that it is from the evil spirits, people who suffer from this mental health issue, the negative aspect of it are actually stigmatized. And that's why when you open up a clinic right now and write on it psychological clinic or whatever, you hardly see anybody coming into it, because whoever goes into that, even when the person wants to go and get information, is already stigmatized. And ladies in particular, you may not even...
Mr. Freshman, wait, because I know that your founder, I remember as a little girl, one of those days when my aunt brought me to that place, we saw a lot of people who were also showing some signs of they were changed, and what will you say about that in relation to what you just said?
Okay, I'm coming to even present my own philosophy clinic, and you're asking me another one from my own point of view of family religious background. Still very okay.
Yes, because I guess you'll be in a right position. Maybe the philosophy clinic is now an alternative to the people that were in chains, suffering, casting out the evil spirit in them, and all that. So how will you, as a professional now, how will you evaluate that with respect to what you just said?
Okay. Actually, one of the things that has happened to Nigerians is this reality of the Pygmy Center of Elele, founded by our founder. You know why I say this? Because even there, we started our apostolate from that angle. And even there, we had this opportunity, we have up to now, the opportunity of relating very closely with these people tagged mental ill persons. And honestly, when you get close to them, you notice that even this idea that they are very mentally ill may not hold water as well, because there are times that they function very well, and you begin to wonder whether they were sick. Examples abound. During adoration, you see them functioning so well, praying with us, doing so many things, and in various forms. But it does not end there. It's not just about, putting them in chains those days was because some of them are, the idea of running mad, some of them are really very violent, so violent. So they can either wound themselves or wound others, or even wound the caregivers. So at that instance, it's just to control them. At that point, we also had a psychiatry section and a psychiatrist who took care of them then, and we go by medical dimensions. But in some cases, they are not giving medical treatments in that sense, but they are giving like human treatments, in the sense that we try to bring out the humanity in them. We try to make them understand that they can still function better. For the mere fact that we interact with them, because sometimes they lack love and they lack so many humane activities that led them into that. And often you see them coming back to life. It doesn't end there. Rehabilitation centers are opened for them, where they can also learn so many, they can unfold their abilities in various forms. And oftentimes they are well, they can tell you their addresses, we take them home and stuff like that, or there are people come to pick them. And
there is something you mentioned which is important for our discussion, that even at that time, at that period in time, you had a psychiatry section. So it's not just all about religion and all about casting out demons, and you talked about the human relationship. So that is important. And with that, I want to welcome Professor Dozie from University Awka. I've been trying to reach you on phone. I hope it's not a technical thing. Everything is fine. All right.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not a too technical thing. I was on transit out. I was trying to port so that I can join. I have a little bit hold up. So I'm so sorry.
Right.
I hope I've not missed a lot.
No, well, it's almost
Welcome, my prof.
It's almost, yes, I can see.
an hour. Okay. All the same, I'm happy that you finally joined. I'm so grateful. So, Professor Dozie you are still the head of department for the Department of Psychology.
Yes.
Yes. And he's done a lot of research in developmental psychology and others. So, Prof, you are welcome.
Yeah, Prof, you're welcome. Mike,
Yes, he's fine.
Okay. Yeah,
yes.
a good guy.
Okay, so Ijere, you almost know everybody.
Welcome, Professor Nwafo.
Well, if you're a researcher,
Prof, welcome. Sister, please. Yeah.
My own prof and
You know
mentor.
each other. All right. So the next question I have here, I will still begin with Mike. Mike, when you look at gender plays a role in the impact of mental health. What do you think of gender and gender roles in relation to people who have mental health conditions?
Well, that's a very good question, sister. While mentally preparing for this discussion or event, I coincidentally saw a copy of the set out goals in the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. Initially when this paper was published, I didn't take it that seriously. Especially in a context like Nigeria or in Africa, where you have limitations in resources. We need to be innovative and then ask ourselves what will function in Nigeria. Sister has already mentioned that in her clinic. They normally use what you would call psychosocial intervention rather than medication, which is not a sustainable approach to dealing with mental health in Nigeria, which is a low resource setting. So, and one of the goals in the SDG aims from poverty, zero hunger, good health, well-being, quality education, decent work, and economic growth, reduce inequalities, peace, justice, and strong institutions is also gender equity. And that requires some form of emphasis, especially in the African or Nigerian setting, where the woman is considered more or less inferior. I am speaking about this openly and honestly because I have 3 girls at home, and I want the best for them. We are trailing the rest of the world in terms of the importance we attach to gender equality, which is actually also very, very important in terms of the development and trajectory of the mental health issues. So I think it does play a role. It's important, and you could say in some ways that is the elephant in the room, which we have to tackle and deal with.
Nigeria.
And before I forget, before we go on, there's an issue I would like it's about religion, the role religion plays in our understanding and dealing with mental health issues. Is also an elephant in the room, because I don't remember, I am Catholic myself, and I don't remember anywhere, any passage in the Bible where mental health issues are dealt in a rational way. And we had religion bequeathed to us by Europeans. It was foreign to us, and we took it on, which is good, it has good effects. But religion, I believe, also hinders us. It impairs our constructive dealing with mental health issues. I wonder how the others see it. I don't know about Islam and the Quran, but
I will just give a quick thing. We may come back to the topic, and the concept religion came even after what we call religion. So Christianity or Islam or Hindu or Buddhism, the word, the term religion itself existed. It's something that is new. So it came with modernity. Okay, so with European problems.
Can I be more specific? Can I be more specific? I'm talking about Christianity. Like if you have a mental health issue, you are not allowed to grieve. You are forced to believe that God is going to help you in one way or the other. Whereas God's work on this earth is ours. Yeah, it is left to human beings to deal with whatever or support each other. That's what I'm driving at.
Okay, you are correct. So that's I really want, because I really want us to remove the whole concept of religion and focus more on and now you have hit the nail at the head. I think when we allow people to contribute, I'm sure many of you want to say something about that, and the panelists will definitely say something about it. Of course, you are correct. So I don't think anybody is gonna contest it, but how we're gonna look at it when already Christianity in its flamboyancy, in its promises, with its dynamics, with the whole idea of exorcism, deliverance, that sometimes also work. And people are restored. I don't want to be an unbeliever. So but let's hold that. We will come to that. What I want to ask Ijere as a researcher, do you see a disparity between male and female who are impacted with mental health? Which of these genders are more impacted? And second question will be, when you look at ages, do you think there is a particular age that is susceptible to mental health conditions?
Well, I think simply put that the female population in our culture tend to have a high rate of mental health, and there's no way I can really distinguish between mental health and addiction. So you guys will have to pardon me. I have to go with both because they are kind of brothers and sisters, very close. And so a lot of female population in our context, because it's a system, it's a traditional system. So it's a systematic issue that they tend to have, high level of mental health issues, some disorders and some just illness. I agree with Mike, it is a very high disparity, especially when it comes to gender issues. Men also tend to have mental health issues, but culturally, in terms of men, is that they're underreported. Again, it's a system issue. Men are in our place. Men are not, meant to, manifest some of their distress and stressful situations. They're meant to hold it in. But again, in terms of the system, how these things are expressed, women, in the female population, they tend to have, this system suppressing them, expecting more from them, and at the same time suppressing them. In position you are supposed to. These are things that the system, our own system, tend to impose on the female population, which I agree with Mike, is something we really need to work at in the profession. Then when you talk about the age, research have shown generally more about the age in the female population and people within adolescent, early adult, and maybe a little bit of middle adult. I'm following, sorry that I'm using the Western, but I'm following Erik Erikson, theory of human development. So adolescent, then early, early adult, and quite a little bit of early adult. So these are especially the adolescent and the early adults in Nigeria. Why? Because the system made it impossible for them to speak out, especially the female population. Let's say if somebody is raped, it's very hard for them to speak. And if they speak out with the system, where even their parents believe them, especially if they're being raped by somebody in authority, will the system allow them to speak out? So this how some of the studies that have been done, attempt to look at it. And that triggers a lot of them to start using substances, that to deal with those negative emotional feelings that were induced by these negative psychological incidents.
Okay, Chidozie, you are also in developmental psychology and a little bit of also social psychology. Mike, I will come back. I will come to you a little while. When we look at urban development, urban cities, and life in the city and the life in the rural area, what will be your opinion in which settings are more prone to mental health conditions and mental health challenges?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I hope I'm heard.
Yes, we are hearing you.
Yeah. So naturally, you know that what we seem to have here is what I call urban ghetto. It's not, you can't call it a city, you can't call it an urban. Like if you're talking about urban, you're talking about Onitsha, for instance, Aba, all those densely populated areas that we call urban. You look at the facility, the mixture of ghetto and the house. There's a place they describe Ibadan, for instance, where you see brown and white zinc. So it makes it very difficult to truly classify some of those areas as urban, okay, without mentioning that most of them are marked or surrounded with ghetto. Okay, but when you compare it to rural areas, places where we call rural areas, in most of rural areas, you still have what we call communal system and homogeneity of population. Like say people living in Nibu, people living in Odi, 90% of them are from that town. When you want to compare it, people living in Ikeja, where you see people that come from various culture and identity and common norms that seem to bind and rule behavior are not adhered to. So when you look at it, you see that the problems of urban areas make it more, so people that are living in an urban area are more susceptible to mental health challenge, starting from economic breakdown, unemployment, lack of housing. The basic needs are not there, are not provided, lack of electricity, techno stress, and everything that is there. Okay? So you see that the stress they pass through day by day will easily trigger an impending mental health challenge in individuals than when those people are in urban and rural areas where life is more quiet. You know their limits, and you are guided by the common law, common understanding that everybody around you is either your brother or your sister. But we have this social capital. Social capital function more in rural area than in urban settlements. Okay, I know some of these social capitals and other environmental features are some of the things that makes mental stability or onset of mental challenge, makes or mar mental stability or onset. So from research, prevalent research that we have done here in Nigeria, from Psychological Service Center here in UNIZIK, we notice that we have more people that have mental health challenge in urban areas than in rural areas, because indicators that can trigger these conditions are common in urban areas more than in rural areas. More importantly, the issue of social capital. Let me give you an example. On Sunday, there was an incident at my town, Nibo, where about 15 young people were killed, gunned down by rival cult wars. Okay, I know of a woman or a family whom their only son was killed in that incident. And since Sunday till now, people are still running, social capital, people are still running around them to condole with them, to help comfort them, and help them in their moment of grief to pass it normally. But you cannot say so in urban areas. The ones that happen in Oka town here, if it happens, people don't even go to their house because they are afraid that police will come and even arrest them, trying to condole with somebody that caught people killed. So you find people mourning alone, and they pass through the moment of grief without enough consolation or social capital, social support, friend support. And these are some factors that triggers some of these mental health challenges. Thank you. I don't know whether.
Yeah, I think what you said now, Mike, do you want to comment on the past topics, or you want to comment?
Yes, I just want to add to what Father Ignatius was talking about. When
You
the
prefer to be called
prevalence. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, he will prefer to be called Webube.
Can you hear me? Webube, okay, Webube, sorry. I just want to add to what he said about, or I just want to hazard a guess about the period in which the prevalence of mental health issues is the highest, especially in women. I believe it should be around the childbearing age, when a girl or a lady is expected to get married. Yeah, it's been put under pressure. Yeah, they end up either leaving the family, which they are forced to implicitly in the Igbo tradition, for instance, or they are forced to marry somebody they don't love. Yeah, so, and this exacerbates, of course, the mental issues that are already inherent in each one of us. So I think maybe it's around that period. Men don't usually pressure to get married between 20 and 30. Yeah, so the pressure is off for men, which goes back to the issue of gender inequality, which is a very difficult topic in that context.
Okay, so I think
I really thank Mike bringing that in a context, because this is one of the things we are talking about in terms of understanding mental health in a cultural context. I looked at it from the Western concept in terms of age, and then Mike zoomed into the cultural context in terms of the gender high prevalence. And as I said, I really appreciate you, Mike, bringing that up, because it is that within that age that age bracket, according to Erik Erikson, according to the cultural concept you brought up, women are having that pressure of marriage, and some even they are pressured to marry, earlier than when they are fully matured, and that is instant is something that is very much cultural, and that's why we have this high level, of prevalence of mental health within that population. There are other instances, and I'm sure that Mike had as a medical professional, you will have this data with you. There are other instances where the female tend to have this high level of mental health issues. Take for instance, Ibi Mmadụ Ugwu, for the female population, So my point is that I really appreciate Mike bringing that one particular instance to bear, which is very, very important.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's not just giving birth. When a woman is married and doesn't have a child, and she doesn't have a child, she's also experiencing pressure, which also can be so disturbing. And when she loses the husband, and the relative, the in-laws, keep giving her pressure, is also a stage to mention about a few. But let's not forget about masculinity. The heavily masculinized culture where we are coming from, where A man is expected to be a man. A boy growing up is expected to be a boy. And that expectation also makes them, when you talk of addiction, Ijere, when you talk of addiction, our boys, they want to be boys. They really want to, be men in their family. They really want to show their families that they can earn. They can bring money to the table. They can say something. It's also giving pressure. So it's also cultural, So whereas their expectation on the women, which is more or less at a disadvantageous end, taking all things into consideration. But there is also this culture of masculinity. The culture of masculinity in our culture is also heavily on the young boys, and I mean, if they don't marry, of course, they're not worried. They can always marry, even if they don't have a job, even if they are ugly, even if they are not men enough, even if they're impotent, there is always a woman for them out there for them to take, so long as that woman is under pressure. But that doesn't remove the fact that many of them still want to be a man. They want to be recognized in the society. They want to talk where their peers are talking, and it is money that talks. So with that money, they are simply under pressure. So thank you again, Ijere and Mike. Purissima, your hand is up. You want to contribute to this theme? So
yes, people forget that, you rather forgot that a woman is in the house here. And I need to actually speak up.
Yeah. So let's start yeah.
I've been waiting patiently to be
man, sister.
and be heard.
Okay.
If you don't say you are, nobody knows you are. So that's what I've just done.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate Mike and Father whoever, Ijere.
Just come in, Nandi, please. Please come in, Nandi. Don't bother yourself.
Okay, for your contributions towards the prevalence of mental health problems among the female folk. But I also want to tell you that this prevalence or the frequency or the high rate of it is to be considered in various forms. And as Sister Kalis tries to navigate to that, I want to add that, yeah, females can have high prevalence of mental health, but mainly in the areas of depression, anxiety, and the rest of them. But in terms of drug addiction, in terms of alcoholic and stuff like that, men also are highly affected, very seriously affected. Our streets can testify to that. So many homes can testify to that. And once they form that addiction from their youthful age, it takes them all through. It's always, Dr. Nwafo will confirm this, that it's not always easy to deal with. And of course, some of you in the house, the co-panelists. But I also want to tell you that even in the midst of this patriarchal society, mental ill health can be high on both sides, both on the male side and on the female side, and not just on the female side. And I want to convince you, maybe because people are outside there for a long time, the females, the female gender of today is no longer the one of yesterday that you knew before you left. You may not be so much in touch with the current reality of our ladies, let me use it that way, these days. With my philosophy clinic here, I came to understand, and it came also somehow with a root shock of the female position towards marriage. It's no longer what people think today. They need the education, that legacy, and what can bring money to their pockets, and nothing more. So I will even tell you that they don't want to marry. Because of the experiences the parents are having at home. They don't want to face that because of so many reasons. They even want companionship and stuff like that, other than marriage. So marriage is no longer, it's for those in the rural areas, or maybe those in, I don't know. But for modern females today, as I'm talking to you, with my experience in the clinic, they are it's no longer a do or die affair. They may even decide not to marry. And I tell you today, some women even take up the marriage challenges in the home more than men. And I think I should take pen it. I will stop at this point. But it's important to know that marriage is no longer as it is being considered in terms of female wanting seriously and more very passionately to get married. No longer today.
Okay, let's
Thank
not
you so very
shift
much.
our topic of discussion. I will give Jose, I'm sure you want to respond to the prevalency, not about marriage. So because if we're not talking about marriage, if you are going to respond to talk about the prevalence between the two genders, then it is okay.
Yeah, I want to talk quickly about the nature-nurture perspective to the prevalence. Okay. Now, women are, we know that they have SS chromosome, and for the male, they have SY chromosome. And research have shown that most of the default gene, for instance, gene for albinism, gene for certain default genes are more prevalent for women. Women are more carriers. In other words, they may be more predisposed to certain things, certain conditions more than men, but not all the conditions. Having said that, for instance, women have more, their pituitary gland and the other gland, thyroid gland, are created to produce more of androgen, estrogen, and serotonin. And females are wired to produce more serotonin and estrogen. And all these things, these two hormones or these hormones are controlled by the master gland, and how adrenaline trigger them off are also different. And you know, also all of them controls our emotion, our feeling, our response to stress. Okay, so biologically, it have not been very clear, but they, like just like sister said, women are more wired to be susceptible to certain health conditions such as depression and anxiety because of the level of serotonin, estrogen they already carry in their body. That makes them seem to be less prevalent to free radicals that can break down the system more than men. But in other words, some certain conditions such like ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, men, the Y chromosome in men makes them to be more susceptible to such developmental mental challenge. But in all, when you look at the nature part of it, due to the fact that both men and women are not given equal opportunity in schools, like I'm talking about Southeast and even most northern Nigerians, people are beginning to know the importance of female education, equal opportunity, and presentation. And with this social media, I'm trying to say with this social media, women are no longer suppressed as we think. Okay, they face equal challenges. For instance, this year, the best graduating this thing, I'm talking about positive this thing, is female. All the three best in JAM are females. Okay, so we can't say that male are more or female are more. What it depends is the family, social support. Once we are coming from a family, you are susceptible, you are predisposed to this, and you are not from a balanced family that can take care of you or balanced environment. That is urban or rural, or it can break you down equally. So there is no much discrepancy in them. Now, from the record we have from Neuropsychiatric Hospital Enugu, presently, that those that come to report, we have equal reports as people when they're talking about schizophrenia. I'm not talking about depression. But when it comes to substance induced psychosis, you have more men reporting because more men seem to go for substance. And then that again asks, why are men going for substance? Is it not to run away from some psychological condition? Most of them depression, most of them tension. They are going to substance that escape to something. At the end of the day, the substance becomes their doom. So you see that there is equal dichotomy in that.
All right, Chidozie, thank you so much. I think you mentioned now triggers and causes, which I will have to jump. Maybe the comments you people make now, please you make it brief. I will have to go round. And having considered these things together, what would you say? You have to combine. I'm going to ask 2 questions, please, and these 2 questions you will answer it. First is people's accessibility to mental health services within this cultural space that we are talking about, as well as what would be your recommendation to effective strategies of combining. Since we can't stop people from going to church to seek for help, we can't stop people from looking for witch doctors to look for help. So sometimes these things are emotional. You know, I was telling somebody, when you dibia, you know, or me jan or me jan, you know, that is not the healing no. The healing no, like onya agba ụrọ akpụrụ n'ọkụ wee mee ebe ahụ dịka Nnamdi jiri kọwaa at the beginning. Immediately o were that ụrọ ahụ dị n'ọkụ tụkwasị ebe a gbara egbe ahụ, hapụ ya for some hours, ya pull ya out. O pull ya, the bullet will come out. Mana before o mee ya, o buru ụzọ kpaa nzu, o tee onye ọ na-agwọ nzu, o jiri azụ, o jiri ihu, you know, moment that we walk out gaa ebe ọzọ sị na onye ahụ amaghị ọ na-agwọ, because na the psychology of healing, getting healing. Often I mekwa mgbe ụfọdụ ịga na hospital, doctor a measure, you know, Mike, you can bear me witness, even on
the placebo effect.
Exactly. So there is, these things need to be there for actual healing to take place. My mother at home, doctor. I want to doctor get treat or chiro we at one side or saying a doctor you know, doctor. So now looking at it from that angle, you know, Christianity and faith, you know, believing with all the things, and of course that there were cultural aspects to healing, and we can't deny that effect with social capitals and utopia and all that. What will be the effective strategy or recommendations, you know, for people who are going through depression, who are, you know, already full-blown mental cases, or bipolar disorders, different, or even addictions, you know, alcohol addictions, drug addictions, substance abuses, which of course in the recent times, and with an outbreak of it in Nigeria. So first question is, what is the accessibility of people to mental health services in which they also go to church to look for help? And then what will be a strategic approach to combining these whole aspects in providing services to the society in respect to mental conditions? I will begin with Ijere, please.
Yeah, I will just say briefly, because as I said earlier on, I want to, you know, conference meeting with my researchers. So I will simply, you know, put it this way. There's a model that we call explanatory model. And that is looking at the manifestation, treatment, prevention, and recovery of both substance and mental health, or the co-occurring. And this model talks about looking at all these things from the lens of the, you know, service receiver, that is the client and whoever the person is. And so, you know, so far I've, you know, both in my clinic in US and also my research, you know, throughout, you know, African continent, you know, what we have discovered is that it's always good to look at where the receiver is coming from, and to pay attention from the receiver. And what that means is that we need to be very careful with data. We need to be very careful with research, because the receiver might not be part of that research. And therefore, the highest level of looking at treatment or prevention is by, you know, putting the receiver at the center of the whole process, you know, and looking at what the receiver might benefit from that process. And so what that means is that we need, you know, cultural humility, in the sense that I'm a clinical psychologist licensed in the United States, and I go throughout this stupid journey in, you know, talking in African continent, but at the same time, I have to be humble to recognize the importance of services provided by African traditional religionists who is in my village, how they can contribute in, you know, reducing the negative impact of substance and mental health in my village, and working with them. That's part of the, you know, cultural humility, working with them and to see the different roles we can play. Even, you know, bringing in some medical doctors like Mike into the whole cultural humility area, so that Mike can provide his own expertise into the whole process, and so that you have what they call a collaborative, but that collaborative attitude cannot function if we are, not culturally humble, to recognize the expertise of different people from different areas, including African traditional healers. They have a role to play, and we have to acknowledge it. It doesn't matter whether Maha Barafa, all these things we say about our Barafa, our Jumdin. Mike, if you don't, do some tests and some certain things, I will just walk out of your office. You will do certain things, which, whether you cryomancy or not, I don't know. But so if Onye Dibia, to get to his own or her own part of the open or we jam and how the most important thing is that, are you providing your own expertise to the point? I remember when I was young, I was thinking there. One old woman on my village that time, Goromo, I water on that time. Yeah, we thinking, Yana, that is the most important component of the healing process or the treatment process. I can't say it's not my area. So that's a Western approach. We need, as I said, we need to pay attention to our people. We are culturally enriched. We are culturally enriched into treatment services, to mental health and substance use. We just need to, be culturally humble and, work with them.
Okay, so Purissima, please give us your final comments on that. We need to wrap up, but all of you will have to make comments.
First of all, I will refer to our understanding of mental health as concerning everyone. And based on this, I will submit that one of the foremost treatments is to take preventive measures. So it will not really be explosive and mar our daily functioning. We establish so many realities that will help to also create awareness at various levels, various places, at various stages and developmental levels, and in various cultures. So taking that in consideration, I will also submit that we go to interventive measures for those who have been seriously affected or even mildly affected, because being affected has various levels too. And in this case, I will also corroborate the position of my co-panelist that I just spoke, the cultural taking the cultural perspective. And so whoever is helping to address this maladaptation, malcondition, will also will also be humble enough to understand the cultural position about it. Because even the religion we talk about is like having a very tight bond, with something or somebody or somewhere that helps us to understand or seek to understand reality. And in most cases, and in this case too, the issues that are beyond us. And so religion, religare, like having that binding to that force that is beyond us, is also important that we understand various ways in which people, these treatments, these mental conditions are treated. The issue of religion is not to be taken away, actually, because it is a way of quietening the mind. If you understand what religion actually is, irrespective of the time it comes, religion has always been there. As even sisters say, the ATI religion and the rest of them, it's not just about Christianity and the rest of them. And so it's about seeking for peace and quietening the mind. And I tell you, once peace is sought and possessed, we will be talking less of mental ill health. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree with my co-panelists that above all, traditional African complementary medicine should also be taken into account. But I believe that probably that the effects are not long lasting. We have to take a double approach to this. We have to take a long view, even at the risk of appearing unoriginal. I want to bring us back to some of the goals stipulated in the SDGs. No poverty, zero hunger. We have 2 risk factors for depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and the rest of them: good health and well-being, quality education, which automatically leads to better health literacy, that you're able to, perceive when things are not going wrong and seek medical or other attention, decent work, and economic growth, which puts your mind at rest, and lessens the risk of becoming depressed, anxious, schizophrenic, or whatever. And of course, gender equality, which also is all in service of male individuals in society. Because if the mother is depressed or suffers from anxiety, it will be passed on to the children. They wouldn't have it normal, because at the end of the day, children are taken care of by the mom. She spends the most time with them. Yeah, so these are an integrated approach we need to take. It's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So that's my take on that.
Okay, thank you. And before I call Chidozie, there is an aspect also we also need to look at, and that is hurts. People who feel hurts, hurts in the past. So with that, okay, Fadi Ijere is going to leave. So with that, I call on Chidozie. Please make your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your contributions, and have a nice time again.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, my co-panelists, for this wonderful contribution on the discourse. Going forward, here in Nigeria, like you asked about the availability of this intervention for people who have already have mental health. There is these poor services for them. Like for instance, neuropsychiatric hospital at Northfair here, we have only one qualified psychiatrists serving there and no psychologists attached there. Others are semi-trained nurses servicing a whole whole of people. If you go to neuropsychiatric hospital, you go the same thing. The only place you have like good number of them is at Aro, somewhere at Ogun State. Yaba, the same thing. There is scarcity of staff to help in intervention. And therefore, like Sister Purisima say, prevention is better. But then a group of experts in Southeast, led by Professor Ebibo, have found out that intervention is best when we approach it from what we call harmony restoration therapy, just like Father have pointed out. Harmony restoration therapy is a client-centered approach to mental health, where whatever the client believes, whether traditional, Christian, Muslim, Orthodox, whatever he believes, is integrated into the treatment and intervention procedure. And it has worked perfectly in Southeast and in Nigeria as a whole. If the person believes that because of his mental illness is from the village people, we look at it with more research. We look at people that are more educated on such things and to seek the opinion. And at all, we integrate all the views in the treatment protocol. And I can tell you this harmony restoration approach has worked perfect in all the situations I've seen. And I think going forward, we should not neglect what we have, but to integrate it, since we are looking at client-centered in making sure that they get better and best in whatever they are suffering. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we're running out of time, but I will maybe take 1 or 2 questions if there is any. Although Fadi Ijere is gone, but 2 questions or comments before we now close.
Well, Sister Kalis, I must appreciate you and your team for this type of sitting, and I consider it also a form of creating awareness for what is, and then brainstorming, with what should be done for our people and even for ourselves. So I want to believe that it will help a good number of persons to also understand what mental health is and to also approach it more from positive point of view. That will also help to eliminate the degree of mental health condition, and also to help our people in creating this awareness to always seek for expertise help, because that will also help to circumvent conditions that may aggravate eventually in future, so that at the end of the day, many things will be done and they will receive many help from so many angles, even from NGOs, from governmental perspectives, from individual perspectives. What's Father was the person that spoke about economic conditions said is very important, because many people are now into serious depression, losing meaning in life. A lot of people, a lot of mental health conditions are going to be registered after some years in the country based on this, on the situation we find ourselves now. So I think it's also important to relieve individuals of these serious stressors that weigh down on the mental condition and not functioning so well at the moment. Thank you so very much. Thank you, my co-panelists, for being here and for having educated us all.
Thank you. So, Sylvester, do you want to raise your hand? And then Clement also raised his hand. So, is that a question or a comment?
A question.
Okay, Clement, please go ahead.
Okay, sorry if I sound too unlearned, but I'm an engineer by training, so most of the most of the talk seem a bit kind of, but I really want to know, okay, depression is an example of mental health issue. Onyara Naba is an example of mental health issue. I want to actually know, what are these other, if there are different ways to know, okay, I have a mental issue. I want to know examples, early detection. What are those things that happen that you begin to know, okay, Odika, I'm having a mental health issue, apart from depression, which you all know. And what are those ones that, okay, you mentioned stress. What are those ones that stress can actually induce? And if I happen to get an idea of what these things are, I believe some can be taken care of by me, and some I will have to seek professional help. What is the line to draw between this, so that Madam
What a couple.
Exactly. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I will give the floor to at least those who are present. First, Chidozie, please, can you let me begin with you to give a response to the question.
Yeah, importantly, it's not always easy for an individual to know that he's already going off the line. Because if you know, then you are still have what you call metacognition. You are still sound. But then, like I would say, humility. If people around you observe that there are some deviance in your personality, in your normal way of acting, maybe all of a sudden you discover that if you are angry, you'll be angry for a long time, unnecessarily. Okay, and at times you feel like withdrawing yourself from everybody. At times you feel that you are the only person important, and every other person's. So whatever all these negative traits are beginning to come up, you are becoming too paranoid. Paranoid means you are suspecting everybody, and under normal circumstances, you are not the person that usually do that. But all of a sudden, you are afraid of everybody, suspect everybody, don't trust anybody, except you don't even trust yourself. Okay, so you become over concerned in things people you call normal or ordinary should not be concerned about. and it worries you to the extent that it makes you, takes away your sleep and all was not. And people around you are probably, who can tell you, will be complaining consistently about a particular pattern that is unusual. Then you should know that something is wrong. You may seek help so that the underlying thing that is trying to come up may be dictated. Okay, so, but most of the time, is the people around or the society that will be the first to dictate that things are not going on well with us. And if there's someone courage to confront an adult with that, and you do a self-examination and you don't understand the perspective they are coming from, you should seek help. But if you notice this yourself, that you are no longer your original personality, original self, and you get worked up about every little thing, then you can seek help before it will skyrocket to something that cannot be controlled. Thank you. These are the smallest tips that I have for now that will help you know that things are really going bad with your personality and you need help to put them in shape.
Thank you, Chidozie. Purisima, do you have something to add?
Yeah, still, well, not so much as Dr. Nwafo, who I consider very expertise in the field, in the area of this, is has also given the basic information with regard to how to actually come to terms with oneself and to maybe somehow identify that one is actually deviating from the normal. Because actually the gap between the healthy mental health and the unhealthy one is very thin, and only a little deviation can make it very abnormal, you know. So in that situation, it's also important to, first of all, to listen to ourselves. Self-awareness is important. Sometimes people might be telling you, you have changed though. Don't take it so much for granted. Ask them what and what have changed in you, and then evaluate it very much. Oh, you have changed though. Is that how you are doing this? So some of these small identifications, some of these little observations may also help one to circumvent something that may eventually aggravate. So I think we should also allow others to help us to be our mirrors, to also help to evaluate us so that we'll not, because it requires humility in all dimensions, in accepting ourselves, in accepting that stressors have actually eaten deep in us, and in also accepting the fact that we are humans and that anything can happen at any time. I continue to say the situation at hand already can make anyone now to even deviate from the normal. So we should be very careful and allow others to assess us. Thank you.
Okay. Mike.
I just want to summarize. Actually, my co-panelists have touched on the main issues. Maybe I want to summarize for Clement. Just number one is when you start to dysfunction, you no longer function, go about your hobbies, go to job, then you know something is wrong. And second, of course, is when people tell you, something is wrong. Interestingly, the German word for crazy is verrückt. It means movement from the center. Yeah, from, this Gaussian normal distribution where everybody's clustered around the center. So by the time you are crazy in German, you've moved away from the center. You become isolated, marginalized, and it worsens the problem. Luckily, most health care systems in the world, they recognize this fact that it can get to an extent where you have to be forcefully hospitalized. It's called the Mental Health Act. Maybe you've heard of it. Nigeria has one, Germany, the UK, but hopefully it won't get to that. So these are the signs to watch out for.
Okay, and something I want to add, I read recently, is what they call the intermittent sporadic reaction. That is outbursts, somebody who used to be calm, just suddenly, a little thing, the person will just start screaming and screaming and screaming and shouting at people, like Chidozie said, onye ara ada ama na ara na ahịa. That's why I'm ready to say that the moment you are even able to realize it yourself, then you are still within range. It means maybe you can consult and seek help at that point in time. Most of the time, what I've experienced, especially in this diaspora here, with families I have engaged with, is that most of the men who came here, going through all the processes of asylum process, have had their mental stability distorted, distorted, and many have not even appreciated that. I said that in one of the occasions of Igbo people. I told them that half of you here are mentally ill, and they didn't invite me again. But some who were there who understood what I was saying, I didn't mean it in a bad way. I said, just imagine how angry you look like when a little thing and you are screaming like, like you're going to kill somebody. Something is not right. It's not that thing that is triggering you. There's a backlog of you are now angry against life. You are hurting against the society. You feel that somebody made you to go through all the things you went through, and suddenly, you start screaming. A second thing I told them that day was that many of them who can't integrate properly into the German society. So the only place they exercise power and flex their muscles is in this environment. So they are a little bit distorted in their mindset. So they are also, I told them, look, go and seek for therapy. You really need therapy, because the fact that you feel pressed, you feel the society you are in, you can't represent yourself because of some handicaps that you have. And here again, somebody is trying to ask you to sit down, and you are so feeling so bad. The humiliation you suffered in the society, you transferred it to the association or to the organization, and it became a kind of a trauma, something that has distorted the mind, and many of them become so aggressive. So the point is, Clement, is that you can't distinguish the line. But like others said, the moment something is no longer the way, the way you used to handle things, the way you need to look at things, you are now suspecting people. When people open their mouth, you think it's about you. And when people don't greet you, you think they have some bad thoughts. It's something, that is why they did like that. Or somebody did, even your kids at home, your friends, you start screaming at them, then something is wrong. The person should seek help before it goes overboard. Mike, you are raising your hand.
Yeah, I just want to add to what you were saying. So the essence of such symposiums is not just to discuss here, and forget all about it. We need to go beyond that. So if we have researchers around us who are looking into migration, for instance, and its effect, because it has to do with public policy at the end of the day. Do these people have access to the job market, for instance? Or a language, is this a language barrier that is causing all these problems? So there's need for advocacy to change things. Because if we keep discussing, nothing will change in time. So there's need to go beyond organizing symposium and really advocating so that the government or policymakers will be aware that there's a problem and look for solutions.
I think you are correct. I raised it because I have been involved in it. I didn't do any research, but because I run programs for African families, African communities, that's how I try to figure out what is actually wrong here. I'm not actually a psychologist, it's not my area. But when I realized that I am not an expert, but I offered kind of a therapeutic approach to some families. So you are correct. For the future of our program, I think we need to, but I hope if we invite people, they will come. First of all, is about creating awareness for policymakers. The other part is to find out from those who are affected why. If it is language barrier, are they even willing to go for language, even if it is offered free? If it is about job, Are they ready to come attend if we organize a kind of a job messe, a little job messe, where we also try to talk to some employers, using the camera and all that, to create awareness for jobs. I want to take a leap from Father Sylvester's community when he had a program for the women, and he advised some of them to go back to school. A good number went back to school. Some of them registered with some airlines and did Ausbildung there and got a job. Some went back to do some Erziehungspädagogik and passed out, and now they are in kindergartens and they're in the Schule. But some didn't, because some are still cleaning toilets. And when you invite them to meetings, they create a mess. When you are talking up, they are talking down, that kind of thing. So that is another question. Are they willing? Okay. Are they really willing to attend, cooperate, and are they willing to take the journey? Then the other aspect is how the what do you call it? How the society or the job market accepts them or assimilates them. You understand? So you're correct. We have to take it beyond this podium and see what more we can organize in terms of advocacy for the people. I completely agree with you. And I also recommend maybe the next step is to take some of these mental health conditions one by one, because it's a whole large area, so we might take them bit by bit. Maybe we take the issue of depression, or we take bipolar disorder, or we take intermittent sporadic explosive behavior, anger management. We maybe we take them little by little and talk about them. Maybe not just online, but maybe on in person. We can also, when people have different platforms, if they like. If, for example, it can organize something in the communities, where, especially in the African community, we can, one person or two in the name of Ikoro can go there and, give a workshop on some of these things, So I think it's a step forward. So I agree completely with you, honestly. Okay. So I think we need to wrap up. I want us to do one hour. It's really getting to 2 hours. But I really want to thank all the ICRO members. I really, really appreciate. This is today's Friday. I mean, if you are coming from work. But Dr. Mike, please, thank you so much for joining from Nairobi. Sister Purisima, you are so busy. You are so busy. I talked with you yesterday. I'm so glad you are here. For Dr. Chidozie, I'm so grateful that you finally made it. I'm so glad. When I informed you, and I love your participation. I pray that if I invite you guys again, when we start doing some details, that you also attend and give us this expertise perspective. Dr. Nnamdi, our president, and members, Emeka, Stanley, Sylvester, Ajuma, and iPhone. I don't know who that iPhone is. So, but I'm so grateful that you people made it. Thank you so much for coming and gracing my birthday.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, sister.
Thank you.
More grateful years ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So that will be the end for today. So all the best.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Cheers.